Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Daffy's Roundtable. Chameleons are their own niche within the niche that is the reptile hobby, and I think that their care and husbandry is a bit of an enigma for most reptile keepers. So today I'm joined by one of the leading educators on chameleons in the hobby. I'm sure you've already guessed it, but on this episode my guest is Bill Strand and we dive into all things chameleons. Did you know that there were over 200 species of chameleons? Or that there were several different types of Jackson's chameleons? We also talk about why chameleons have such a bad reputation. Is their care really as hard as people think? And of course, how can we do better when it comes to chameleon husbandry? Bill is also a leading entrepreneur in this industry with multiple different projects on the go all the time. So towards the end of the episode, we also talk about the importance of having a social presence as a breeder or a business. And then we just nerd out about a bunch of content creation stuff, which again, if you are a breeder or a business in this industry, I would recommend you stick around to the end and you hear this part too. But before we get into this episode, allow me to thank Exoterra for sponsoring this podcast and making this episode possible. Exoterra makes quality products for our pet reptiles to make them feel at home. Also, just really quickly, before we get into the episode, if you do listen to this podcast on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and leave us a comment. I'd love to engage with you guys. And if you listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or any of the other platforms, please make sure to hit the follow or the subscribe or whatever it's called on there as well. It really helps us out and I really do appreciate it. Okay, without further ado, everybody please help me welcome Bill Strand of the Chameleon Academy. Bill, hello.
Hello, Vadi. Very good to be here.
I'm super excited to have you here. Thank you very much for coming on and doing this. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a nice warm day here in Southern California. For those who don't know where I am, that's where I am. And I always love trading weather barbs with my friends in Canada.
I was going to say, don't ask me how it is here. Where are we? We're in the beginning of October and it's already very cold here. So, or colder than I'd like it to be. So I am jealous of the Southern California weather for sure.
Yeah, well, it is nice weather, but of course, being a chameleon guy, I do not like it when it gets into once it gets to 100, that's danger zone. So I don't like it when it gets into the 90s. Once it gets into the hundreds, which it has been a number of times lately, that's not good. So everybody's got to come in, and I lose the advantage of being in Southern California.
That's interesting. I never thought of it. I was always jealous because I was like, oh, all the keepers out there can keep outdoors and that kind of stuff. But I never it never occurred to me that some species, it's too hot for some species as well.
Most species. You start getting into the 90s and it's warning time. And the Jackson's chameleons are starting to, they'll start to get temporal gland infections and die. Panther chameleons will start, let's get lighter colors. We don't like this. Parsons chameleons, they don't like it at all. My shamrock chameleons, they're not liking it at all. Everybody's got to come in. And so it's a great drama. Down to the lower, like when it gets really cold at night, no problem at all. They just warm up during the day, no problem. But heat during the day, it's going to kill chameleons.
Fascinating. So what's your, I guess we're jumping right into it. Then what's your, how long are you able to keep them out for? Like, is it like a 2-month period that they have to come in for, or is it longer?
So it depends on the species. Every species is different. And it actually depends on the year. It wasn't that long ago that I could keep just about all of my species outdoors all year round. But lately, we've been getting more and more 100+ degree days. And that is death for a chameleon. Even if you start to have it, the larger the enclosure, the hotter it can get because these larger enclosures will have more and more foliage. And of course, with the soil ground, and you've got the misting systems. And so you can keep them out when it's inhospitable because they've got that microclimate deep inside. And I've had some cool weather chameleons that would just burn to a crisp at 100 degrees and they'd be up at 105 outside. But if you go in deep inside of the cage, like these big, like 4 foot by 4 foot by 7 foot tall cages, heavily planted with the misters, you go down near the ground where it's just heavily shaded and it's really cool down there. And so this is the power of understanding gradients.
Yeah, understanding microclimates as well. Yeah, fascinating. And I assume, do you how do I phrase this? Do you bring the entire setup inside, or do you have a secondary setup indoors that you're kind of just moving chameleons over?
I always have a secondary setup indoors because you can't just move in a cage that has a bunch of plants that have developed to indoor lighting. You can't take it outside because then it'll just burn in the sun. And of course, plants that have been outside, you bring it in, and all of a sudden they're, I need light. So plants develop leaves depending upon the light conditions that they're grown in. And so low light, the leaves will be larger and greener, darker green, and that's to adjust to the low light conditions. Outdoor plants, if that same plant was grown outdoors, these leaves may be smaller and adjusted for high light. So you got to take the plants into a consideration as well.
Yeah, fascinating, fascinating. Also, because I see a good preview of some of the episode that we're about to get into. I feel like we jumped right into it, so maybe let's take a quick step back, and learn about Bill. Bill, how did you get into the hobby, and why chameleons?
Oh, I'm not going to be able to answer that. All I know is I fell in love with chameleons. That's people keep asking, so what was it about a chameleon? I fell in love with it. And that was, over 45 years ago when I was a kid, and just fell in love with a chameleon and have not looked back since. I just knew when I saw a chameleon, this is my life.
That's awesome.
And I have lived according to those principles ever since.
And what do you mean by that? What do you mean by lived according to those principles?
I have been obsessed with chameleons, learning about them and keeping them when I could, researching them in any time, and seeing what's going on. The chameleon became the way that I learned about the world. That was the passion that drove me to learn. Health, all that kind of stuff, boring. Learning how to make sure a chameleon doesn't have MBD. Oh, well, now I'll figure out about D3 and UVB and calcium. Oh, you're telling me that's the same for human beings? Oh, nice. Okay. So yeah, my passion for chameleons helped me learn about the rest of the world. That was my conduit.
That's awesome. Was it a specific species that kind of you were like, that's my chameleon, or was it just chameleons in general?
Chameleons in general. Although when I started off, I knew about one species of chameleons, Jackson's chameleon, and then when we had a bunch of these animal cards that would come out. This was, well, like 50 years ago. And we would have these animal cards that would come to our house as subscriptions. And I learned through those animal cards that there were at least another 2 species of chameleons. So I had 3 chameleons that I knew about. And of course, there's 220 species. So that just tells you the limitations when you're a kid and you don't have access to, back then, I had no idea what existed outside of the territory of my yellow pages. And for those who don't know, way back then, the only way we knew what businesses existed were the big, thick books that were yellow, and they were called the yellow pages. And inside was every business and their phone number. That's how you knew what was out there. And but they had zones. And so anything outside of my zone, I didn't know was out there. So as a kid, of course, I couldn't drive. So yeah, my research was limited to the 4 libraries that were in the area. And I would make my mother drive me to each library so I could transcribe the entries in the encyclopedias under chameleon. Yeah. So you know what? I earned my knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know I worked for.
I love that. That's amazing. Did you say 220 species of chameleon?
Something like that. It's over 200. It keeps changing.
Wow.
These taxonomists, they need a job, so they keep breaking things up.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. And how many of those 200 and something have you kept? I assume only small fraction are available in the hobby.
Yeah, but I've been around for a while. Probably about a quarter of them.
That is awesome. Okay, very cool.
I actually counted at one point, and it was around. I've worked with, over my last 45 years, I'd say between 40 and 50 species.
Wow. Okay. And were there some species, I guess, that were more widely available a bunch of years back that you just don't see anymore?
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, when I say species, I mean species, subspecies, locales.
Right.
These things are different to us chameleon people, like night and day. Night and day. Okay, subspecies of Jacksonii, they're different. So we have a even finer granulation than the actual official species. So maybe I should say that when I say 40 to 50 species, it's not really species. Species, subspecies, locales, differences.
Fascinating. And so let's take the Jacksonii for as an example. There's multiple different subspecies, and are they separated based on location, or and then I guess are their care requirements different as well?
Oh, so Jacksonii, people, you normally know about the Jackson's chameleon, this big green thing with these incredible horns. And there's actually 3 recognized subspecies of Jacksonii. And that is one group that definitely needs the attention of a taxonomist, and they know it. And that's probably going to be broken up into a number of different subspecies and probably full species. You've got Jacksonia miramontanus is the little one that's up on the Mount Meru in Tanzania. And then there's Jacksonia xantholophus. And then there's Jacksonii jacksonii. And Jacksonii jacksonii, the one we normally see is from the Machacos Hills, the bright yellow across the flank. But that subspecies is like it just catch-all. Everything that's not the 2 we really know is in that subspecies. And there's so many different, obviously different subspecies, if not species, that's grouped in with Jacksonii jacksonii. And so that's a group that's going to be blown apart one day. We're just getting ready for it. I'm sorry, what was your question?
I don't know. That's perfectly answered. That's fascinating. Yeah.
Are they cared for differently?
Yeah.
That really depends on the elevation that they're found at. Like the Xantholophus and the Machacos Hills, we call them Machacos Hills because this is one of the few times where saying Jacksonii jacksonii, their official Latin name, is more confusing than saying the common name Machacos Hills Jackson's chameleon. That's how messed up that subspecies is. And so, yeah, the Machacos Hills and the Xantholophus, the yellow crested, the common one, are about the same elevation, and they can be cared for about the same way. But you start getting into the miramontanus, and that guy's a real high altitude. And so you're talking about greater UVB needs. Probably. We haven't had them in captivity long enough to be able to really figure out the distinct UVB needs. It takes a lot of work to figure that out, and it's a lot easier with egg layers because we can measure whether they're getting enough calcium. Like if they lay a fully calcified clutch of eggs, oh, he's getting enough calcium. She's getting enough calcium. But with live bearers, I mean, how do you measure if they're getting enough calcium? I mean, we could try blood tests and stuff, but nobody's gone through that kind of trouble just yet. And luckily, the ones that are most available to us right now can be cared for the same. But, we would just come up with another different care sheet if they have other varieties come in. But I'm not wishing that we have any more varieties come in because, and I'm saying varieties because they're like Jacksonii jacksonii, and right now that says nothing because it's just so diverse. But other members of the Jacksonii jacksonii, the thing is, the higher the elevation, the more they need the wide swing between day and nighttime temperatures, and we just don't do that in our homes unless you really have a room that you're going to air conditioner. You're going to give it the exact temperatures that it needs. But why do that? Unless there's a reason to bring in yet another form, I'd say just leave them where they are. We're doing just fine with the ones we got.
Yeah, I have like 1,600 questions just based on that, what you just said. First of all, Live bears? There are chameleons that are live bears. Not all chameleons lay eggs.
Oh, they are wonderful. And of course, they cause all sorts of chaos because people will go to the pet store. They will buy a female that has never been with a male, as far as they know. They bring one home, and then 1 or 2 years later, all of a sudden, their cage is filled with 30 babies. It's like, what?
The gestation period is that long, 1 to 2 years?
Oh, well, they can retain the sperm.
Okay.
They can retain it and impregnate themselves when the conditions are right. So they're stressed. They're saying, okay, conditions aren't right. Well, then they just hold off. And then once they settle in, they say, okay, it's time. It gets even better because the Jackson's chameleon that we all know and love, the female doesn't have any horns. Oh, it's easy to tell the difference between male and female. Well, that's the only subspecies where the female doesn't have horns. Every other species, the female has horns. And so the Machacos Hills Jackson's chameleon, female, has 3 horns. It has 1 horn or it has 3 horns. 2 different varieties. It's probably a morph as far as we know at this time. But at this point, you can get females that have the 3 horns. And so somebody brings home a, quote, male, and then a year later has babies. So yeah, Jackson's chameleons is so cool, but boy, do they cause chaos in the beginner community.
That is fascinating. So, okay, so we'll build off that. I think chameleons have a reputation in the hobby, right? I think most people are scared of them. You know, there's always like, oh yeah, I love chameleons, but I don't think I keep it. Do you think that this reputation is valid, and why or why not?
The reputation is valid because it has been earned. And this is actually a good thing. And it's not appropriate. Okay, so let's just start at the beginning. Yes, chameleons have a certain number of requirements. And those are different than we intuitively know. Intuitively, we think, I've got an aquarium, I put in a leopard gecko, and it lives. And the leopard gecko has a wide enough tolerance range that it can absorb me figuring reptiles out while I do it. Well, that doesn't work for a chameleon because a chameleon is an arboreal reptile, and it needs arboreal conditions. Those are not intuitive for us human beings. And so it takes research before you get a chameleon. So the reason why it has that reputation is because people get a chameleon without doing the research. They don't treat it with proper husbandry, and so the chameleon dies. They're not a fragile species. They live in the wild where every living thing and inanimate thing wants to kill them, and they survive just fine. So they're not fragile. But you can't keep a human being in an ice cave and expect it to thrive. So we have to figure out, how do you take care of chameleons? Now, there are care guides out there that are very easy to follow. You just have to find them and you have to follow them. And that means, oh, I need a big cage. Oh, I need a UVB light. Those are expensive. I need a misting system. Why do I have to spend that much for it? Especially since I just bought this at the expo for $35 as a closeout special because the guy didn't want to bring it home. So I don't want to spend more for a cage than I did for the chameleon. So what can I get for 35 bucks? So yeah, you go in with that kind of attitude and there's going to be problems. But the reason why, and in a way, I'm okay with chameleons having that kind of bad reputation because it keeps people who aren't dedicated enough to want to spend the time doing the research necessary. It keeps them out. That's good. That's fine. I don't want to deal with you if you don't want to do the research. You come to me and say, how do I take care of a chameleon? Oh gosh, you know what? I want somebody who's saying, okay, I'm going to take this seriously and I'm going to research what I need to do. And yes, there's all sorts of problems out there, some bad information and stuff, but at least you're now on the road to figuring it out. It is easy to take care of a chameleon. They are hardy. If you just take so many care guides out there, and this is perfect because there's so many good breeders out there that have a care guide. Even if it's a care guide that I personally don't agree with is best, it still works. And so you just have to follow it. You have to make the investment for the proper setup, and then you're going to be fine. If you do everything that care guide, I mean, there's so many of these care guides. It's just a recipe. If you do that and you get say a panther chameleon from a reputable breeder, I'm not talking about grabbing something off of one of these classified lists or from the corner guy on the at the Reptile Expo that's selling these things at a bargain basement price to move them. No, you got to be smart about who you buy it for. You buy it from a reputable breeder that there's going to handhold you. They will handhold you through the entire process. You follow what we say to do. You're going to, I mean, they're really hands-free. They're very easy to take care of. And just do it right to begin with. And you could go the entire long life without going to the vet.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting you to say. And then so to turn it into on like more specific things, I always hear that it's like, oh, it's because they need super high humidity and super high airflow, and achieving that in a screen tank or in a glass tank is impossible, and so you need specific tank, all these kind of things. Do you have anything to say about that?
Impossible? I don't know. I'm doing it all the time, and there's no. Well, okay. There's no gatekeeping on my side. I'm telling you everything. And so, I mean, you go to Chameleon Academy, I've got over 750 videos, 350 podcast episodes, and hundreds of page website. The information is out there as to how to do it, and we're doing it successfully. And okay, if you want to go to some of the obscure species that we're still working out how they deal with seasonal fluctuations, yeah, okay. So there's still challenge out there. We haven't discovered everything, not even near that. But if you want a panther chameleon, my goodness, those things are like pigeons in Madagascar. You have to deliberately screw up or deliberately not research or decide not to follow the care guides to screw up with a panther chameleon from a reputable breeder. Okay.
Yes. Would you say that the panther chameleon is probably the best quote unquote beginner chameleon?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah, veiled chameleons are hardy as well, but we don't have the deep well of experience with any other species. The panther chameleon, we have the greatest amount of experience in our captive community that you can find basically good information. I mean, it's very easy to find it. And when you buy from a reputable breeder, I'm going to say that a lot, you're going to have a direct line to the best information possible. Yeah, okay, after 2 years, maybe you'd say, hey, maybe I'm going to try a different hydration method. Yeah, that's fine. But you've got the information to keep the animal alive and healthy. So it's very easy. You just, I mean, you know, I guess, how do I say it? It's like anything. It's easy if you do it right. The thing is, it is easy to do it right. You just have to commit yourself to doing it and paying the money it takes to get the equipment.
Yeah. Now, you've been to Madagascar,
okay,
which I assume is which we know is a chameleon hotspot. Is there anywhere else in the world that is also that, I guess, maybe not densely populated, but that a lot of species of chameleons come out of that you would like to visit?
Well, okay. Chameleons come out of, our exports of chameleons have reduced to a trickle. Madagascar and Kenya are the only ones that are really sending anything out. And Kenya, a little bit. Most of what we're getting is from Madagascar, which is a total switch from, 20 or so years ago when Madagascar was the one that was closed down. The other place that has a concentration of chameleon species would be Tanzania. And that would be a fun place to go. But as it happens, I'm going to be going back to Madagascar.
Oh, are you? Is that something you have planned out?
Oh, in January. I'm going with a group of chameleon people, Chameleon Academy people.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Chameleon focused trip.
When I came back from the last time telling everybody about it, they said, boy, we would have loved to have gone with you. I said, well, how many of you would like to and how many of you are serious? And there was enough people. And so I talked to my tour guide. I said, guy, how would you like a bunch of more chameleon people? He said, let's do it. And I said, okay, let's do it. So in January, I'm going with a bunch of Chameleon Academy people, and we're going to enjoy chameleons in Madagascar again.
That's awesome. And are you hitting the same locations as last
Yes.
time? Yeah.
Yes. And really, I looked at how would I change this? And the thing is, where we went, and by the way, I was very instrumental in determining where we went last time, specifically for this, because going from the south of the Ranamafana in the south up to Palmarium in kind of the north, it allows you to get a wide range of the species that are brought in right now. And so I have a very husbandry mindset. And so I like that I can go to the areas of the chameleon species that are allowed to come in that we may see in captivity. And so it's more of a, okay, I mean, I love seeing chameleons in the trees. That is wonderful. But more so, I want to see where they're sitting in the trees. I want to see, how does it feel out here? How does it feel inside the forest? How does it feel where the chameleons actually are? As we know, you look at the weather tower, all of our data on our smartphone, that's taken at a weather tower. And I can tell you, there can be easily a 10-degree difference from when you're standing outside of the forest and you go inside the forest, at least 10 degrees. You have a sense of what a microclimate is. Now, yes, you can do the same thing any place in the United States and you get that kind of insight. But when you're doing it where the chameleons actually are, it means a whole lot more.
For sure. And is there something that you changed in your husbandry or care, or something that you noticed when you were there? They were like, me doing this makes more sense now.
There are things that I took back and said, I want to do this better. It is hard to figure out how to do that. Like lately, when you went there, I go there, the humidity can be 90% during the day and then close to 100% at night. And the thing is, we don't like to do that in captivity because we don't want bacteria growing inside of our cages. And so there's a compromise that we have to make because we're working in a small space. And so part of the challenge that we have is, how do we bring in that high humidity with ventilation in captivity and recreate that? And so I've been experimenting with things like, okay, so I'm going to use a screen cage and keep a fogger going all day. That's not a good solution, but it's an experiment to try to figure out how we can make that happen inside of our homes. And I don't know how long it's going to take to figure that out, but that's part of the process. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's how you improve husbandry, right? That's absolutely a testing and trying, and not testing when you have no basis. You know you're successful at keeping the species well in probably multiple different ways. Now you can start experimenting to make it even better. That is awesome. A species I want to ask you about. I know we have them in captivity, but I don't see them around a lot. Not that I see chameleons in general around a lot. Is Bressia?
Yep.
Is it true that, first of all, that they only live for about 3 years?
It's hard to tell because we have so little information, and we really, yes, they do in captivity, but they could easily live longer. If we had a large population of captive hatched individuals, we'd have better information. But when you're getting adults that have parasites, and how do you treat Bressia? That's very difficult. And so it's really hard to say this is the best that we can do. But as far as what we're doing now, yes, it's 2-3 years.
And is that the reason we're not seeing them more commonly, or is their care just a lot harder than, say, the panther?
Well, as we're going to we see them in imports. The reason why we don't see them as much in captive husbandry is because they're too cheap.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, as in there's no purpose for anyone to really take the effort to work with them and figure out captive breeding, because people are just going to buy the imports anyway.
There are people that do it, but it's not sustainable. It's like, okay, I'm doing this as long as I want to throw money down a pit.
Yeah.
And so people do it. They do it a couple of times. They say, wow, that was cool. Now let's go do something else. For something to be maintained long term, there has to be a financial balance to it, or else you just do it as long as it's fun.
Yeah. Are there
and
any
money? It becomes more fun. So yeah,
that's true.
That's just the
the
realistic truth.
And with the money, you can do more, which also makes it more fun. Which it's just a cycle. Absolutely.
But the thing, if you breed anything and you can't find homes for it, that's really frustrating, because you can't keep everything you can breed. Once you figure out how to breed it, there has to be that ability to give it to new homes, and you have to have that continual exchange going on, or else you have to stop breeding. And that is why we have lost so many species that we could easily captive breed. And I can list the species that are just incredible species that are no longer available because somebody bred them, somebody continued to breed them, but then they couldn't find any homes because the wild caught prices were too low. So you couldn't compete, and people weren't excited about things that they can't make money at. So it disappears. And we've lost a number of incredible species that are no longer exported, no longer imported, no longer available because of this dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's one species that you would like to bring back from those ones that you're thinking of, what would it be?
There's just so, I mean, there was Kinyogia multituberculata. I don't know that it has a Usumbrada dual-bladed. No, I don't know. Kinyogia multituberculata was an incredible little chameleon. Of course, Bressia paramata, which is now CITES 1. I bred those, but they were just very cheap. Daramensis, Trioceras daramensis, one of my favorites. That's a tri-horn species. And of course, yeah, okay. Oh, Bressia, Bradypodium thamnobates. That's an incredible species. I would say, for those who know what I'm talking about, that's probably the best pet chameleon that exists.
And it's just not available anymore?
No. Small, live bearing. I have one of the 2 last males in the United States. Wow. As far as I know. Of course, there's things hidden away, but yeah, they came in once. They come from South Africa, and South Africa doesn't let anything out. They made an exception, this one exception, and the guy totally screwed it up. But we got some in, and I bred them 2 generations. They're incredible. I still have my male from all of that. He's incredible. But after the first wave of breeders bred, there was just these babies all over, totally saturated the market, and they couldn't get rid of them. So they stopped breeding them. And that's all it takes to break the line, is to saturate the market. And I know this. We've done this, seen that so many times. So I'm now working with the shamrock chameleon, Kaluma o'Shaughnessy, and I want to establish it. And have spent 2 years establishing it as a recognized species and building up a community around me that's interested in that species. And so I'm working on making sure that that foundation is there by time we start churning out babies. And this is a passion of mine, is trying to establish these species. And I've tried a number of times, and I've learned something each time. And so this is my 3rd or 4th attempt. So it's a very interesting experiment.
I love it. I love it. And that is kind of a perfect transition to another topic that I want to talk to you about. You said one of your passions is establishing species, and I think another one, or maybe not a passion, but something you're very talented at, is establishing communities. And you have built an incredible community with the Chameleon Academy. You know, we have people that come to our expos wearing Chameleon Academy shirts, and I don't know if I'm even allowed to say the name of the other one, but the Illuminati. Nobody from that group get mad at me, but like you've built
you're
very cool.
You are taking the risk all by yourself by mentioning the Illuminati.
Yes, I take the full risk. But yes, so you've built incredible communities, and I think you started the other podcast, Reptile Entrepreneur, and you've done a lot of very big business moves for somebody in our industry. And so I would like to kind of touch on that as well in this episode. How important is it for somebody to have that social media presence when they're building a business? You just mentioned you're establishing the species, but you're also establishing a community around it, people that already like the species, so that you can, when you have the babies, you can sell it, and all of that stuff. So how important is it to kind of establish that social media presence, in your opinion?
If you're talking about if you're a breeder?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, if you're a breeder, you need to get your name out there somehow. And social media is just the biggest thing right now and the easiest thing. So that's the one that comes up. You don't have to do social media. You can build an entire business off of a website and blogs and Google. You can do an entire thing like that. And that's another skill. It's just, it doesn't give as, it's not as flashy as social media is. And so you need a way to get your name out there. And this is what I tell breeders when they start breeding. When you have, you're putting a male and female together, that's the time to establish your presence out there somehow. Social media is the easiest way to do it. And you have to build a community who knows who you are and why they should buy a chameleon or reptile from you. And like, panther chameleons are big in the chameleon community because they're big, bright, easy, hardy. And so, but there's a lot of panther chameleon breeders out there. And so somehow you have to show somebody why they should pay you money instead of that big breeder. And the easiest thing to do is to say, I'm cheaper, which is a cop-out. And it doesn't take any imagination at all to do that. That's also a way to kill your business. People think sales and profit are not the same thing. And this matters because if you're a breeder, you have a lot of experience that's valuable to the community. And we totally lose that experience if you burn out. And you're going to burn out if you're not being paid enough for your time. And people say, oh, but I love it. I'm doing it for the love of it. Okay. BS. Okay, yes, you love it, but you are spending X amount of your time dedicated to this project. If that time is not being spent paying the mortgage, well, then it's personal time and it's relaxing time. If you're being a breeder, it's not very relaxing. And so you've got the stress from your regular job, you got the stress from this, and your family is now saying, okay, where's the benefit of what you are doing? And if you can say, okay, well, listen, we've got $1,000 more a month and I'm taking you to Disneyland, they're going to say, oh, okay, I see the benefit. But if all you say is, no, I'm not making any money, I'm just stressing out on this thing because I love it, that produces friction within the family, and then your life starts doing a downward spiral. And people just say, yeah, but I'm working with chameleons. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And they don't realize they're miserable. And so they just like the idea of it. And so this is one reason, this is something that weighs on me, as I've always had a heart for the chameleon community, not just chameleons, but the community. And so when I see this dynamic of breeders burning out, that says to me, okay, there's something wrong here that we need to address. We need to figure out how to solve this issue and, lay it out on the table. How do we solve the issue of breeders burning out and having unhealthy relationships with chameleons in their community? So that's also an important thing. Most of us, we just do it and we just have fun, and whatever somebody else does, it doesn't matter. But if you do something like me, where I'm doing a podcast and I'm really looking at the community and how do we have a healthy community, I think about this a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And then also another positive from it, and maybe you can give me your opinion on this as well. What do you think of like using that community and using that presence to going back to those species that make great pets but aren't around because they're so cheap? Using your presence to popularize those species to where maybe you almost put a money value on them because of where they come from, and then they're not as disposable, if that makes sense.
I am trying to do that with the shamrock chameleon, Calumina shonensi, and it's difficult to do something like that because you can't manipulate the market forces. If you artificially inflate something because you get people excited about it, they won't keep being excited for the 5 years it takes to do the first level of establishing a species. It's like you need the entire community to buy in, and there's only so much that you can infuse. There's only so many people that you can infuse with excitement. There has to be something really there. And that's why establishing a species is really difficult, because if people were excited about it, it'd already be established. And there's no other chameleon species that is as hardy as a panther chameleon, as colorful as a panther chameleon, and as it can be bred in so many different colors as a panther chameleon. So there is a future. If you wanted to Doctor Strange it and figure out all the different possibilities of the future, there's a future where the panther chameleon is the only one we have left. It's a very real future. Veiled chameleons, we just keep inbreeding them. It looks like they're hanging on. We can see genetic drift in there, but say they crash and say Madagascar shuts down. If Madagascar shut down right now, within a couple of years, you'd only have the panther chameleon, maybe Parsons chameleon, because they live for so long. But and so there'd be a chance that we'd have more of them. But right now, panther chameleon, veiled chameleon hangs on unless there's a genetic disaster because it's constantly being inbred. There's no wild ones coming in. Parsons chameleon because they live so long. Carpet chameleon is an up and coming. And so we may be on the verge of establishing them as a captive species. It looks really good. I think that's positive. And Jackson's chameleons, maybe because I don't know where they're coming from. They're not supposed to be coming from Hawaii. They're not supposed to be ranched on the mainland. But some reason, somehow they keep coming. So there's something going on there that I am suspecting is not necessarily above board, but I don't know what it is. So
right.
They keep coming. And they keep coming because they're available. They're not because they're great pets.
Right.
They need cooler temperatures, and they need a steep nighttime drop to be healthy. And that's just not something everybody can give. People who are serious about them have an air conditioning unit in their room. And it's not that much to put an air conditioning unit in your window. You just have to want to do it. So that in itself means it's not a great pet for most people. And so it doesn't deserve to be as common in the United States as it is.
Yeah, it makes sense. And the Parsons, sorry, just jumping to one of the things you said, the Parsons are the giant ones?
Yep.
Okay. And do they make good pets? I assume no.
Oh, well, that's one of those double-edged swords. They make incredible pets. One of the best chameleon pets. Big, huge if. Can you put a big if in red letters with little sun rays coming off of it?
I can do that.
If you are able to provide them the care that they need, which means large cage, at least 4 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot. But I love keeping mine in a 7 foot by 4 feet deep by 7 foot tall walk-in enclosure. They're big. And so everything about them needs to be bigger. More food, more water, more everything. If you are able to provide them more space, which is an expensive cage, build it, I don't care, but and provide the larger environment, the larger food, the more water, and figure all that out, then they are incredible pets. They are hardy within their care. You can't let the temperature spike. You have to give them enough hydration. And they really are like a next level chameleon. I mean, you look into those eyes, there's intelligence there, and it's like you make a connection. So it truly deserves its reputation of being the king of chameleons. So I love them as pets. Just make sure that you are going to do them justice. They require more than most people are able to give them.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I am bouncing around a little bit here. I apologize, people. But before we get back to the social media, you mentioned cages and kind of how you keep them and all of that. And one of the things you've done, or one of the businesses you've started, I guess, is your own caging company. Could you sort of give us a story on that? Why start it, and was it a good business move?
Well, the reason why I started it is because, and this is the Dragon Strand Chameleon Caging Company, started in 2013.
Sorry, yes, I should have said the name.
And the reason why I started it is because there wasn't an easy way to do chameleon husbandry. And back then I was deep into educating. I've been a community educator, and since the early 2000s, I started chameleonnews.com, which was an online e-zine. And the thing is, when you're telling people you need to be able to have hybrid cages, and so yes, it blocks ventilation, but you need to be able to keep in the humidity. You need to be able to individually raise the chameleon babies. You need to bring your pots and branches up off of the floor and mount them to the sides of the cage. You can say all that, but if there's no way to do it, you can't go out and buy anything that lets you do that. It's kind of like, okay, only the people who DIY it will do that. And so it got to the point where I said, okay, I'm going to start a company that will make this easy. And so I started Dragon Strand Chameleon Caging Company. The first product out was the nursery cage system, which is a bank of smaller cages that you could raise babies individually. And then I came up with the 4-foot wide cage. That was Chameleon World's first 4-foot wide cage. And my lineup was a hybrid cage lineup. Before then, it was chameleons have to be in screen cages or they die. Well, that's not the truth. And so I broke that barrier. And so now every cage company that comes out is a hybrid cage company. They do it with PVC and stuff. But it started back then because I literally had to fight the screen cage only crowd, saying, no, actually a screen cage is usually not the right cage. And I invented the dragon ledges, which are these brackets, anchors that attach to the sides of screen cages, allow you to mount branches and pots. And so everything that I introduced in this company was solving a problem that the chameleon community had. Now, yeah, it was expensive. Well, yeah, they're unique products, and I have them handmade in the United States. I'm not making 100,000 of them in China. So yeah, they're expensive. But what that did is it provided the option for people to buy it if they wanted to, but also it let them know that it was okay to do it. And since then, chameleon community, like I said, all these hybrid cages come out. Nobody has created a company that makes screen cages since then. And the community went forward. I mean, the nursery cages are the most copied cage design in the community. Everybody who starts a cage, that a company that wants to address the chameleon market, has nursery cages now. I did a rack compatible, so these things would fit on baker's racks, and now so it set a standard. But the thing is, those things solved problems. Oh yeah, I came up with the laying box, so you could put a cage on top of the laying box, and when the female's done laying, you just pick the cage back up and put it back on your shelf. These are things that that were good for us.
Yeah, fascinating. Like you said, it's solving a problem, innovating new products. That is fascinating. Are you still producing the Dragon Strand cages right now?
Yes, I am. And I've actually expanded it. And you can see behind me, I'm now working with, let's see if we, up there. There we go. So this is a new line. Yeah, sorry about the one on my right. That's being refurbished right now. But the one behind me, that one is, this is one that I'm working with a company called Custom Reptile Habitats. And this is a cage line that's for arboreal reptiles. And it combines bioactive and naturalistic with soil capabilities. And so this is the line that I'm working with that allows me to start talking about bioactive. And that's a new thing for the chameleon community, is acknowledging that there's benefit in the soil. And that's because our husbandry has evolved. I mean, it's evolved since I've started my podcast. Back then, with Dragon Strand, I was talking about we need to retain the mist. But since then, it's become even more and more apparent how important humidity and fogging is to chameleon husbandry. Chameleons always had the reputation of being big drinkers. They keep drinking and drinking and drinking. We have to mist them multiple times a day because they keep drinking. Well, the reason why is because they're dehydrating during the night. And when we start keeping high humidity nights, fogging during the night, they actually come out in the daytime and aren't thirsty. They ignore water. And so this is a discovery, a personal growth that has happened since I started the podcast. And I mean, anybody can go back to the Chameleon Academy started as an audio podcast on your typical podcast feeds. You can go back to the first episode there and just listen to everything in order, and you will see a progression of growth, my personal growth of, when I started, I had decades of experience. And so I was, at the top of chameleon husbandry. But since the podcast, I've grown more in the last 10 years than I did in the first 30. It's been an incredible experience. And you can see that happening. The important thing about that is when I say this is the husbandry for chameleons, you can just trust me, or else you can go back and listen throughout all those podcasts. And I've interviewed over 100 keepers, breeders, scientists, veterinarians from around the world. You will see me grow as an individual and where I got those ideas and how I tested those ideas, how I collaborated and listened to how other people worked with those ideas. You'll see the complete growth and the origin of the husbandry that I present on the Chameleon Academy. That's the power of the Chameleon Academy. It's just not me saying, this is what I believe, and so you should believe it. No, it's saying, this is what I believe chameleon husbandry to be the best, and that's because it's a conglomeration of the multiple people from around the world. And this is, you can watch it. You can see how I came to that conclusion and make your own conclusion. If you disagree with me, that's fine, as long as you're taking in all of that information and come to a different conclusion. And if you do, I want to hear about it. Let's talk about it. But this Chameleon Academy is really a community-driven outreach.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love that. And so I was going to ask you what your favorite platform to create content for is, but I assume just based on that answer, it's probably podcasting. Okay.
Yeah, my favorite platform to create content for is the audio podcast. That's where I feel like I can truly produce something that I am happy with. I've dabbled in YouTube over the years, but in the last 4 years, I've put a lot of attention towards YouTube, and that's just because of the change in the world. When I started podcasting, a lot of people wouldn't come on video. They were even nervous about having their voice recorded, much less their face.
Yeah.
2020, the pandemic, that changed it. People are now on Zoom, and now all the people that I wanted to interview are very comfortable on camera. And podcasting, the podcasts never got the reach that YouTube does. You go onto YouTube, it's a search engine. And so a lot of people find what they need on YouTube. They don't do that on the podcast directories. So the reality was that if I wanted to continue to grow, I need to grow with the times, and that means go onto YouTube. And it probably means going on to TikTok, but and I'm there, but my goodness, that may be the extent of what I can do. Daddy, I'm sorry. I'm trying. I do not give up. And
I feel you.
I'd say for everybody out there, if you want to have an outreach that lasts you can be on a platform forever, but if you want an outreach that's dynamic and continues to grow, you have to move with the times. When Instagram, if you love Instagram and Instagram goes from still images to shorts, sorry, it's time to grow. You got to figure that out. I love podcasts, but if I stayed with only podcasts, I would just be small. I have to go to YouTube, and I'm not good at videos. I'm passable now. Videos were very, very difficult for me. And so it was difficult for me to make that transition to YouTube. And I had to put myself through self-imposed boot camps. And you'll see earlier this year, I got so frustrated at how long it was taking me to make a long form YouTube video that I just sat down and said, all right, Bill, you are now going to make a long form YouTube video every day. And you're going to launch it every day. And so I did that, and I dedicated myself to it. And I did that until I got to 52 episodes, which was a year's worth of, if you did one YouTube episode a week, that's a year's worth of YouTube episodes. And so I did that every day. And to make sure that I didn't like slip or just skip a day or something, I committed to doing a premiere, YouTube premiere. And for those that don't know, YouTube premiere means when you go live, it's scheduled and you have a live chat, which means that while the video is playing for the first time, there's a live chat that you and your people can go and you can talk with and chat about it. And so every single one of those episodes was a premiere. And what that did is there were people expecting me to be there every single day at 5 a.m. Pacific. They expected me to be there. And so I had to produce a video and have that video waiting there every single day at 5 a.m. And I tell you, that was a rush. Oh my goodness. I was living off of adrenaline for those 52 days, pure adrenaline. But I made it, and I did it, and I proved to myself that it didn't take 2 weeks to make a video. Now, those were vlog style, and every now and then I got a little fancy with it. So obviously, putting together a big, complicated video you're not going to be able to do that every day and maintain that for 52 days. But it showed me and it trained me in how to do it. And so, okay, now that I've proved to myself that I can do it, doing it once a week, I can do that, right? Come on, Bill, you proved to yourself you can do it, so no more excuses.
Are you releasing once a week now?
I am once a week now, and things are actually shifting again. I'm constantly working on the outreach. And that's the thing. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not a podcaster. I'm not a TikToker. I have the Academy, Chameleon Academy outreach, and I will use whatever tool is out there, and I will adjust when new tools become available and required. So I have a pretty active account on Instagram and on YouTube, and of course still a podcast. But when the next new thing comes on, I may not jump on it immediately because I'm exhausted doing new things. But I'm still working on what I'm working on right now, so I don't need any new things. So none of these lemonade or whatever things you want to come up with. But I'm done with that. But but that's one thing we have to keep in mind. We have to move with the times. And so when something new comes up, I will drag myself kicking and screaming and figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to keep relevant, there's no choice. You got to keep doing that.
Absolutely. I remember when Vero was starting to come out, and I think there was like 5 reptile people on it, and you were one of those people as well. Yep. And I guess it just died down. And maybe you already just answered this question, but is there any new platforms that you're playing with that you think does have potential for the future?
At this time, no. It's going to be very difficult for a new platform to come on because we have to figure out a new approach. And what I mean by that is this whole social media stuff. We call it social media because that's how it started. But it's becoming less social media and more entertainment now. And TikTok really just upended everything and just gave us those constant dopamine hits. And that has overwhelmed things to where, I mean, you look how much social media, as in connecting with friends, are we doing online now? And not much. And so we've got these platforms, these big companies, TikTok, Instagram, that are just absorbing anything that somebody else comes up with that's new and that works. So if you have some sort of social media entertainment company and you have this novel approach, if you can't trademark it, as soon as it becomes successful, Instagram is going to copy it. And that makes it very difficult to come up with a new platform. Instagram is just this bloated beast of every feature you can have out there, and they keep making new ones. And I don't see anything right now. But I will say, although it's not a new platform, I believe that the personal touch is going to become more and more important. Community is going to become more important because we're getting tired of all of the clickbait things. We're getting exhausted with all of the trends, and so they don't have the same power. AI is now creating entire websites, entire YouTube channels, and so that's like crack cocaine that is just too intense of giving us exactly what we want. And when we have everything giving us exactly what we want, we then start to look for, okay, let's look for some imperfection. Now I want imperfection. I want to get back to reality. I've had enough of the fantasy world. And so I think what we're seeing now is an exhaustion at the constant TikTok dopamine IV. So I think that we are going to see a greater value around community, and I've been there. I really believe in this, whether it becomes mainstream or not, but community is the center of my outreach. I have 2 live sessions a week where I just get together with my people. And all of my videos are premieres. So every single video that I post, it's not a rule, but pretty much it comes out to be every single video that I post is a premiere. And so I'm talking with my community when the video goes live. Now, I won't say there's a whole lot of people that join me at 5 a.m. in the morning, but if you love chameleons and you're looking for a community to be part of, there are, let's see, I do a Tuesday night show That's a live show. Wednesday morning is a launch of the DIY Chameleon Guys. It's just a DIY show. And then Wednesday evening actually is I do a live show with my friend Sean McNeely, Reptile Show reporter, and I'm the co-host. I just hang out there and just act up. It's not my show, so hey, I can act up. Saturday I have a live show, and so there's four touch points throughout the week if you want to hang out with the community, and I'm going to be adding a fifth. So,
do you want to talk about what the fifth is?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to be launching a new. Actually, by time this goes live, this new channel should be launched. It's called the Misty Forest Dragons, and it's a YouTube channel that is about the general reptile community. I have an absolute love for arboreal reptiles, and so and I love misty forests, so that comes up. But I want to talk more about the general reptile community. Like the last video I did was an intro to fighting reptile parasites instead of chameleon parasites. And so I'm expanding how I'm talking about things. Now, on my Chameleon channel, that just kind of fizzled, because my Chameleon Academy is known for chameleon husbandry, chameleon community. And I'm actually not as known for like beginner stuff. I mean, people come onto my channel for beginner stuff, but the real value that I bring to the community is explaining the deep concepts, UVB, nutrition, cage building strategy and philosophy. And so there's a distinct feel to my Chameleon Academy outreach. And so me coming in and doing just general reptile stuff doesn't fit in with that. But you could argue, well, does DIY building laying boxes, does that fit in with that as well? You know what? That's probably been a problem, because the YouTube algorithm just doesn't know what to do with my channel. It's just got so many diverse things. But that is okay, because I want it to build community. That is my main purpose with this Chameleon Academy outreach: build community and move chameleon husbandry forward. It's not set up to bring in people from the outside. I've been trying to make it that way, and I'm realizing it's now time. I'm going to try to break those apart. And so I'm going to start another channel whose purpose is to talk to the general reptile community. This is stuff we've been doing in the chameleon community. These are the things we've been talking about, and these are the things that apply to everybody else as well. And I want to learn from all the other communities. One of my most popular features of my podcast was the Outer Fringes, where I'd bring on some expert from another community, and we'd compare notes, and we'd find out how similar arboreal husbandry is. And there are things that other communities are working on, and there are things that we in the chameleon community are working on, and we can share that information. And so I'm essentially taking the Outer Fringes concept and creating an entire new channel off of it. And that'll be probably by the time this is launched, you'll be able to find, look for Misty Forest Dragons on YouTube. And yeah, please subscribe.
I love it. I love it. This is one of the topics I want to talk to you about, was like sort of how I did the podcast on a separate channel than YouTube. But I think you already answered that right there. It's a different community per different niche kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll also say, if you want to go into the entire structure, there is actually a deeper community that I work with. And that is, earlier this year, I came out with a digital course called Hunting Microscopic Chameleon Parasites. And very soon, within a couple of months, that's going to be expanded to hunting microscopic reptile parasites. I started with chameleons because, if you go too big, you never launch it. So, but with that course, it's more than just a digital course. It's a community-powered course, meaning that there's a community attached to the course. You go through the course, it's asynchronous. You can do it on your own time, at your own pace, but every lesson there's a chat, and you can type questions in there and I'll get back to you. And then there's a forum, a community attached to it, to where if you're part of the course, you can be part of this community. And that's where all your fellow students, the alumni, and me, we talk on a daily basis. We share our case studies. We discuss the different topics about parasites. It's really it's meant to be a virtual campus for the Chameleon Academy. And that was always my vision. We have lectures. There's a lecture hall. And on a regular basis, I bring in experts around and we talk about parasites in the community. I had a breeder on, Jonathan Hill from iPardalis, who had found coccidia in his breeding group. How did he get rid of it? I had Dr. Rob Koch on. He was talking about the different medicines that we're using in parasites. I had Dr. Michael Nash on talking about the life cycles and the science of protozoans. And so this is meant to be a virtual campus. And you've got your course, you've got your classroom where we discuss the things in the course. And while you're taking the course, you can see the case studies, you can see it in action. And so it's a dynamic learning environment. And then there's, of course, there's the quad. There's a just general conversation where you can just pose, this is my chameleon. But yeah, so this community that I have developed on my lives and my premieres, all of this community actually has a home, and it's the virtual campus where we all are at, and we're learning. And so this is an exciting thing. My vision for the Chameleon community is that I would have this virtual campus. And so this is, of course, just the first course, and I'm working on the next courses. So this is, I've got a lot ahead. And by the way, if anybody here is interested in learning about parasites, and this is life cycle of parasites, how to purchase a microscope, how to use a microscope, how to identify parasites, the medications we use, how to quarantine, how to change your husbandry so you can fight the parasites, how you can be a full partner with your veterinarian. Hunting microscopic chameleon parasites is available for purchase. And I'll say it says chameleon in the title, but it's applicable to all reptiles. Coccidia is coccidia, different species, but they look the same. So you can apply it. We're applying it to bearded dragons, frogs, snakes, boas, and all. It's the same. And so don't let the word chameleon make you think it's not for you. Within a couple of months, I'm going to be updating it so it's reptile parasites, and I'll be able to do that. And you have access to any upgrades in the future. So you get in now, and it'll just keep getting upgraded. Fascinating, Bill. I'm going to have you send me maybe just a list of links to include in the description, because there's a lot to cover here. But everything that whoever's listening, go check all those links out, because I'm sure there's a lot to learn from each one of those things. But yeah, fascinating. I like that you're doing the courses. You're almost bringing in things that have been done in other niches, and having them possible to, like, most people I think would think, like, how would I teach a course about reptiles? But you're teaching a course on chameleons, chameleon husbandry, that stuff, and now you're doing the course on parasites. So I think it's genius, really, is the word to put in. Yeah, it's gosh, it has worked out so well. I can't tell you how satisfying it is to have these students, these alumni who have gone through this course. Now they go to their veterinarian and they say, okay, I've got a problem with a parasite. Here are the last 5 fecals. This is the pictures of them. Yeah, I'll bring you in a fecal, but this is the history. Yeah. And then they can monitor the what happens as the medication comes in, and they know when it's time to go back to the vet. We're not replacing veterinarians here. We're becoming a full partner with the veterinarian and giving them a much larger picture as to what's going on. And so we are taking people doing husbandry and we're supercharging it. Now you know what's going on inside of your reptile all the time. And usually you don't go to a vet until your reptile is starting to go lethargic and it's just really being affected. That's garbage. That poor reptile is now on its last legs by the time you see it. But if you are looking in the microscope and you're checking them every month, I do every poop because I love it. But you do it you will catch a parasitic infection before you can notice it and before it really affects your reptile. And you medicate when the infection just starts, you wipe it out and you never see a sick reptile.
That is awesome. So smart. And okay, and on that note, I'm going to ask you one more question and then we'll wrap it up on there. Do you have any worry that YouTube and Instagram and all of these things are eventually going to go away? And if so, is that why you have them all these things happening on your own website or on your own platform? And then, is that,
Am I worried about them going away? I don't see them going away. I'm worried more about being randomly blocked. And, you're having your account shut down in the middle of the night because some AI made a mistake. And it's happening with so many people. So you've got to, if you rely on Instagram or you rely on YouTube, YouTube's not as bad. I mean, you get warnings. They allow you to fight it. Sometimes it's hard to do it, but at least you get warnings. Instagram, TikTok, they decide you're against community rules or whatever, you're gone. You don't even know what happened. They won't tell you what happened. You don't even have anybody to talk to. Maybe if you've got the verified badge, maybe you can find somebody to talk to. But if I know some people who their entire marketing outreach is their Instagram account. That's dangerous. I do consulting through my Reptile Entrepreneur, and I say, you definitely use Instagram, but do not rely on that as your only way to contact your community, because when that goes, everything goes. You do not have any of your followers. You don't have their names. It's a scary thing. And so Instagram is easy. And if you got good growth, it's addicting and you love it, but it can disappear. And that's really dangerous. And so you need to have something off Instagram, not only like a website, which is great, but if Instagram went down, how are you going to contact your people? You need an answer for that. And if you don't have an answer for that, be nervous and get an answer to that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I assume the answer to that is your own website.
Well, it can be anything. It can be multiple social medias. Like I have a strong Instagram presence and a strong YouTube presence. Right. Make sure, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Make sure that you have, if you're big on any one of these, make sure you have something that is Google, like YouTube. Make sure you have different companies where you have a presence. And then the most powerful thing really is a newsletter. And if anybody is on the Chameleon Academy, my newsletter, my weekly newsletter is a dynamic newsletter. It is not something that I just throw together as a checkbox. It's not just a marketing, okay, here, buy this, this is on sale. Every week I have a topic. We talk and I ask for your feedback. You give me feedback, and in the next newsletter, I will put that feedback, and then I'll have a next topic, and I have a marketplace. And so my newsletter is a full-fledged outreach in itself. And the newsletter, like a website and a podcast, those three things you own. YouTube, Instagram, you don't own those. TikTok, you don't own that either.
Fascinating. Yeah, I love the concept of the newsletter. Actually, listeners, let me know if you would be interested in me starting a newsletter, and if you subscribe to it. Something I've been kicking around for a while. I think that may be the next step. I think it's a very good step. And as you said, you actually own it. I assume there's a fine line between too frequent of emails that annoy people to go away, and then maybe just weekly updates kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a real tough thing because number one, everybody for anybody out there thinking about doing a newsletter, don't do it because you were told to do it. I mean, all the tech bros and entrepreneur people say you need a newsletter, and so we have all these websites that gather emails. Do you ever get a newsletter from them? No, they're just gathering emails because they're told that they should have a newsletter. A newsletter itself, you have to dedicate yourself to that as an independent outreach in itself. It's not just something you do for your YouTube audience. It is its own outreach, and you got to treat it as serious as that. If you do not, then your newsletter is going to be treated like all the junk that is in everybody's email inbox already. All the things. Okay, you wanted a cool PDF. Well, just give me your email address. Okay, you get the cool PDF, and now you got a bunch of marketing emails, and our inboxes are filled with that. And so, don't start a newsletter until you actually have something to share and you want to dedicate yourself to sharing quality in that newsletter. I mean, newsletter, it's really easy to ignore email, and so if you put out garbage for, like, they may give you 2 chances, but after that, they're not opening your email. So it's, I will say a newsletter, as important as I believe it is harder than any of the other social medias to do successfully.
Yeah, I have no doubt of that. I think just coming up with a topic interesting enough to keep people reading is a lot harder these days, especially, with the smaller attention spans and all of this. I think podcasts, most people are either listening to it while they're driving or they have it on TV while they're working in the Reptile room. So it becomes a bit of an easier format to reach people's ears. Whereas, as you said, newsletter, you're actively sitting on your phone reading or on your laptop reading. It's harder to keep people's attention there for that long.
With all these different outreaches, everybody, don't look at them as something that I've got to be on everything. And don't look at them as just the same thing. Like, yeah, you may post the same short to YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, but all those 3 audiences are very different. And so if you want to be highly effective, then you're going to have a different targeted outreach for each one of those platforms. And I would argue only be on the platforms that you're willing and you have the time for to produce an independent outreach for each one of those platforms, or else everything will just be and you won't get growth. You won't have the dynamic outreach that you're looking for. Yeah.
Okay, I know we said we'd wrap it up on like 3-4 questions ago, but this one will really be the wrap question. I have one more. I think, if you're listening to all of these people online that are telling you do this for Instagram, do this for YouTube, and all that kind of stuff, one thing that very commonly comes up is the argument of quality versus quantity. Where do you stand on that in terms of content? Do you think, producing multiple pieces of content, more quantity with lower quality helps, or are you team quality?
That is a difficult thing to answer. And the reason is that the more quality you produce, the more loyalty you generate. But the more content you produce, the more chance you have to get put in front of people. And we know one of the most frustrating things is some of the lowest quality stuff gets the highest reach and gets you the highest subscribers coming in. That's what happened to me. I got my first reel that I was experimenting with, and I just did as I was groggy in bed and saying, okay, I got this. I'll just put some music to it. 25 million views. But the reels that I sit down and say, all right, this is hard hitting, and I spent a day meticulously putting it together, just bombed. And so it's very easy to get cynical about that and say, fine, then I'm just going to get my AI generator and I'm going to produce 5 reels a day like Adam Mosseri of Instagram wants me to do. Fine. So I'll just throw a bunch of garbage against the wall and see what sticks. And, you play the lottery 5 times a day. Eventually something's going to happen and you're going to build an audience. That's a valid, I hate to say that that's a valid approach. It is, but that's a valid approach if growth is your primary concern. And if you are an influencer where growth and views and things like that are That's going to give you growth, not necessarily the views. You have to have the quality to bring up, back up the growth. But if your success is a size of a channel, then that's what you've got to do. And before we say, okay, that's a vanity metric, that doesn't matter. Unfortunately, it does. When Animal Con is coming up, who are the ones that they are talking about the most? It's the ones with the highest, the highest subscribers. Yeah. It matters how big your account is. That is the first impression. It's kind of like being well-groomed and good-looking. Does it really matter? Well, yeah, for first impressions, it gets you in the door. But you have to follow that up with quality. You have to be able to back up what you promised, and that you have to be worthwhile for people to spend their time there, or else they're going to leave, or they're not going to be active, and you're going to have a whole lot of subscribers that are just not active. And YouTube, Instagram, whatever, is going to look at that and says, okay, you've got 100,000 subscribers, but you got 5 likes. Okay, that doesn't make sense. We're not gonna put your account out there. So there's got to be a balance, and you have to have a clear vision as to what's important for you and your outreach. What do you want? What are you getting out of it? When I talk to my clients, I say every account needs a purpose and it needs a promise. So the purpose is, what are you getting out of it? After a year of doing this and all of this work, what would you say, okay, it's successful because this happened? What did you get out of it? And then the promise is, what can people expect to get? What value can they get from your account when they come up? So having those two things firmly in your mind is going to help you decide what kind of content and what kind of frequency you're going to produce. Now, of course, that's very detailed. There's a lot that packed into that, and we could have a whole nother episode just on that, what I just said there. So, I'll just leave it at that right now. But you've got to have a balance between quantity and quality. And I will say something that can help you decide that is also consistency, because that is something that you've got to take into account as well.
I love that. I love that answer. And as you said, I'm sure we could talk about this for a whole entire episode. So maybe if people are interested, let me know. And if Bill is willing, we can come on and do like a whole episode just about, building businesses in the hobby and that kind of stuff, and building a social presence. Because I find it fascinating as well. And I know you do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. On that note, Bill, there was a lot of places to find you. Can you quickly tell us maybe the easiest ways to find you and to find all those things you have going on?
Okay. The easiest way to find me is on YouTube at Chameleon Academy account. And the reason why that's a great place is because that's where my live sessions are. And so you can come Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, Saturdays at 12 noon Pacific. And it's an hour of just me talking with people, answering questions, and the communities in the chat. And we're all having a good time. That's the best place to find me. The best place to really know what's going on is going to be my newsletter. And you can sign up for that on chameleonacademy.com. If you sign up for that, that's the center of everything that I'm doing. You can find out. There's so much that I'm doing all over. That's the center point. And you can figure out where you want to be in the rest of the pantheon. And other than that, please find Misty Force Dragons on YouTube and go and sign up, subscribe, and make my poor channel. let's give them a big opening. And I haven't started a YouTube channel. Well, I did, but this is the first time I've really started from zero in a while. I guess I've started from zero as well, but I didn't care before. This is the first time I'm actually saying, okay, this is my strategy, and I really want to grow this channel. So it's a real fun thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will be sure to be following it myself. And once you start making content on there, we'll give it a share as well. So make sure to let us know. I'm sure you will make a bunch of posts. So I'm sure we'll already see.
I won't keep it secret.
Yeah, exactly. And once this episode is out, that channel will already be live. So
Yes.
if you're listening to this, please go check it out. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome channel. And on that note, Bill, thank you very, very, very much for coming on. This was an awesome episode. I'm super excited to release it. And yeah, I'm sure everybody else is going to love it as well.
All right. Wonderful. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.